Well, hello and welcome to our retro review for 2016's Doctor Strange. Stephen, of course, the first foray into the MCU for one Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah.
Now, we do this all the time when we review movies on here. We have an initial little chat on the film, our thoughts on it prior to its release, the build up to it. What was your thoughts on good old Benedict? He was already an established name by this point. Most people knew him as obviously Sherlock Holmes on BBC.
Yeah.
That magnificent Burberry coat that he had, I still remember it. His lush, curly locks.
I think that was the first time
Very
I saw him in as well,
different
John.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's something, pardon the pun, there's something strange about this film's release. I'll put my hands up, and I actually missed the release of this when it first came out, John.
Yeah.
So much so, my dad, who's only ever seen one MCU film, went to see this in 3D with my brother, and he loved it, absolutely loved it. So it was a strange situation.
Best one to go and see in 3D, really.
I think so, and I kind of regret it. I kind of regret not having that experience, because certainly this film, from its trailers I recall, or trailers, the visuals were very heavy, and what we saw before the film's release. But yeah, I mean, the excitement was there. There was references to this character. I think it might have been the Winter Soldier, I can't remember. Maybe even before that, I'm not sure. But we knew anyway, we knew this character was coming. This is something that I always loved about Marvel Studios and their slates, what's to come. And this was one I was very excited about. I didn't know too much about it. We've never... When we do our hero show, John, it's something that we always try to remind people that watch the show is that we're not experts on comic book, as in the comic book format. We primarily talk about the movie experience and our experience in these films. So I didn't really know too much about the character other than the obvious and what his powers were, etc. Benedict Cumberbatch being cast in this role as well excited me. As you said, John, great actor. We've known him for a long time before he even entered the MCU. And yeah, I mean, not just him, others. Mads Mikkelsen was cast in this film as well. Always been a fan of his for many years, and it's just an excellent cast, and I was so looking forward to this film. And as I said, the one biggest regret I had was not going to see this film in its initial release and in 3D.
Well, Stephen, you can't see them all. Let's be honest. There was that many MCU movies coming out at that time. And even now, but I think it was only two at that point.
Civil War was out that year as well.
Civil War was out that year, that was the big one. And then you had the likes of Deadpool, I think round about the same time of this, maybe a month later or earlier. I think they maybe do March.
And some DC
I think this
stuff
came out in April. Some DC, I
think the
Batman v Superman came out.
Suicide Squad as well, possibly.
Suicide Squad came out as well,
yeah.
Both shambles from DC. It wasn't a good year for them, but we're not reviewing that, so who cares about that? But you're right, Stephen. It was a fantastic cast, so that had me intrigued right away. And when we finally did go to watch it, I think we both agreed that it was pretty damn special. I think we both, which we'll get into later on, in agreement where it is in terms of standalone MCU movies and as in the MCU as a whole. But look, that introduction, it's very quick, it's right in your face. It's Caecilius.
Yeah.
Obviously Mads Mikkelsen's villainous character, him and his ragtag group of cronies, I think they appear in one of the, I don't know which one it is actually, but they rip out an enchantment that's outlawed, and then that also takes them on a conflict with the Ancient One, Tilda Swinton.
Yeah.
It's a very intriguing intro. There's a lot of mind-popping visuals, I've says. I think you said something before we came on. I seen that as well when I rewatched the movie on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for Inception coming out prior to this, this movie would have been lauded more for those intertwining visuals, all those little moving cogs and street parts.
I think
because
we take it for granted. Yeah, and it's a shame, John, but that's not to say we don't appreciate what you see on the screen. The reveal as well of the Ancient One isn't at this point either. I think she's hooded, so it plays a part later on. Maybe a half an hour into the film when Doctor Strange is introduced to the Ancient One. It's a bit of comedy in there, but it's a good intro, John, and it kind of sets up what we're going to be experiencing over the next couple of hours. It doesn't really narrate too well. It's based heavily on the visuals, and there's conflict, and you don't really get too much. And I don't mind that anyway, because it's one of these films. This is a origins film, so we know we're going to get back. We're going to get a lot of narration from the likes of, you know, the Tilda Swinton character and everyone, Wong, etc. You know, everyone that sort of surrounds Stephen Strange. You know, are going to explain exactly what they're all about, what his purpose is, you know, and give him a choice in life as well. There's a few sort of life choices in this film.
Absolutely.
But obviously the introduction of Stephen Strange as well. It kind of reminded me of Tony Stark's introduction in Iron Man, that first film. There's obviously differences in these two characters, but they've got that kind of arrogance about them.
Yeah.
The difference is that Tony Stark is more self-absorbed and he doesn't really care about anyone around him at this point to really big them, you know, put them down to big him up, if you like.
Yeah.
Stephen Strange, on the other hand, I found him quite nasty at the start, you know, to an extent. You know, he liked to belittle the ones around him to make himself, you know, look a bit bigger and stuff like that. But I think that's one of the things I like about this character, because it's the development from when we first see him to comparing him in that first scene to comparing him to the last scene in the film. You know, what a difference, what a transformation in this character.
Yeah, Stephen, he almost goes on the same journey that Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark goes on throughout the entire MCU in one movie. He starts off completely arrogant, self-absorbed, as you did say, but at the same time he liked to flex his muscles with other people, lesser intelligent people, intellectually, whatever you want to call it. And also we see that with the Doctor. He's belittling him, he's putting him down, he's getting in and retrieving the bullet out of this injured person's head. I think it's fused into his spine or something, and it's just slapping him down. But look, in some ways there is something kind of likeable about him even then, though he's making jokes. And again, it's important to show you where he is as a starting point, as you did say, in terms of materialistic stuff. He's got all of these watches, the Lamborghini car, the big flash house with the piano. He's walking around, he feels untouchable.
There was another thing I noticed as well, John. After the successful operation on that family member, when they were going out to tell the family the good news, did you notice his sort of distancing when that lady tried to you know, give him a hug? It reminded me a lot of Tony Stark as well. You know, he didn't like the hugs, he didn't like things being passed to him directly, that kind of thing. So there's these little ticks in there as well that reminded me a lot of you know, Stephen Strange being the same as Tony Stark in that kind of sense. But
he's just obsessed with his career, really, and just getting all the plaudits.
Yeah, I mean, he's the best at what he does. You know, you can't deny that. You know, but he knows that as well. You know, that's what makes him successful, though. You know, that makes him the best in his field, and that's why he's surrounded with all the material stuff. You know, one thing that's missing in his life is obviously there's no family. You don't see any family there, and obviously there's no one. You know, apart from, I can't remember her name.
That you find it.
Yeah, I can't remember her name off the top of my head. It's been a while since I've seen the film, John, but there's that kind of tension between them, you know, like he's not letting her in emotionally, if you know what I mean. She obviously wants to be there for him, she'll stand by him. Rachel McAdams is her, but I can't remember the character's name. And you know, there's this sort of there is a distance, looking at a distance, you know, between the two of them. You know, she, I think, does her best to try and let him in emotionally, but he kind of keeps it at arm's length. You know, he doesn't want to be involved emotionally. That's what I sensed anyway, John. That's what I kind of got out of the character at this point.
No, Stephen, you're right.
And I think that's down to obviously him being quite self-absorbed as well. You know, he's more in love with himself than anyone else, you know.
And he's not a complete figure at the beginning of this movie, and that's the journey he goes on. He's got all the materialistic stuff. He's Flash. In a physical sense, he's complete. But mentally, in terms of wisdom, he is badly lacking. He has got a bad attitude in life.
Yes. And
there's various little nods at that. Obviously, when the car crash happens, we'll speak about that car crash scene incidentally. I mean, it's just, again, it's so slick. And incidentally, the guy's memory, you can see that right away. He's got amazing memories, making references to songs from 1977 or something.
Yeah.
He's got fantastic recall. That's something that's always linked to intelligence, apparently.
Christine Palmer,
that's the name of the character. I thought it was Rachel McAdams. I didn't want to say, though, because I'm terrible with names, as you do know, Stephen, so I could have got that badly wrong. But the car crash sequence is fantastic. It's so slick. And again, it just shows you he's so arrogant, he feels untouchable, he can drive the car, speak on the phone, kind of juggle scheduling things and all of that at the one time. Of course, he takes his eye off the ball, it flips over the cliff, And again, as a CG side and a visual standpoint, I thought that was a fantastic scene sequence, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And I've not actually got into it, but just the obsession with his hands right from the start when we're introduced to Stephen Strange. It's his hands you see first, and you see his hands putting on the apron and whatnot.
Scrubs, yeah.
Yeah, he scrubs, and then it's hands again with the watch. This is a man, his hands mean everything to him.
That's his tools, John.
During this car crash scene, his hands obviously are firmly in the shot when I think it's the dashboard comes over and crushes them.
Yeah.
And that's just symbolic. This is the end for him. What's he going to do? He has to go off and become a better, more wholesome figure, which will take you on to the next part of the movie. But what was your thoughts on that car
obviously
crash?
before he goes on that journey, John, he's still bitter because obviously after the crash, he wakes up and looks at his hands, he's criticising the actual work that's been done in his hands. But the actual sequence itself, it wasn't any great surprise it was going to happen, with what he was doing in that car at the time, try to drive that, and where he was driving it as well, along those hillsides, and try to look at, I think it was x-rays or something like that, as I recall, on an iPad, and I was like, what is this guy doing? And you just knew it was coming, but visually I liked the way it slowed down inside the car, the slow motion. It was very important to see where his hands were as well, John. The way they get right through that dashboard as well, and it was horrendous, really, wasn't it? But it was bound to happen. That's what happens to him. So, I said, I just getting back to what I was saying, when he wakes up and the road to his recovery, it was one of the things I was glad they didn't do was make it long and drawn out. You know, this was something that it was easy to see physically he was a wreck. I was glad they took the road of more the sort of mental side, how this was going to affect him mentally, because physically he was effed. Yeah. In his profession, in his career, he was effed, John, because you can't do the work he does with that kind of damage to his hands,
Yeah, and Stephen, look, again, it was a physical disconnect from the old Doctor Strange, or Stephen Strange, and now he has to go off and be a new person because he can't do his job as he did before. But one thing I did like about that sequence, I think it maybe lasted between 5 to 10 minutes in the movie, when he's trying to mend his broken hands. He's going to specialists, they're knocking him back, he's getting radical treatment, stem cell work done. Yeah. Nothing's happening. It's the determination that the guy possesses. He's determined to find a way of getting his hands back. And that's something that carries through the character, even once he becomes a better, more spiritual, wiser person. His determination, which proves to be really pivotal at the end of the movie, is this is a guy who doesn't give up very easy. And also that has ramifications for the Mamu, or whatever you call him, Dormammu. Can't say that name, I'm Scottish, it's very hard. But look, he goes on this journey, he ultimately doesn't get his hand fixed, but it takes him face to face with some guy who was in a similar sticky situation, paralysed, he couldn't move his arms
Jonathan
and whatnot.
Pangborn was the name, played by Benjamin Bratt, John.
Yes, yeah, well, you knew him, Stephen, actually, you said you remembered his face. I couldn't really recall him at all. Maybe if I look at his filmography or something will probably spring out, but obviously he goes off to this Kamath and he comes back a renewed figure, and he can walk and he's playing basketball, so that piques Stephen Strange's interest. He goes and meets him. I think he says, well, I remember you knocked me back, you wouldn't even see me.
Can't buy reception.
This it takes him on the journey.
Yeah, it does. This is the first time you see him vulnerable, because he's actually looking at this guy and pleading for his help. He needs his assistance in how he was able to, bounce back from, obviously his accident. And, he's putting his hands up in front of him, at the basketball court, and absolutely shaking. They're all scarred, and, he's basically on his knees at this point, begging this guy, I need your help, So it was the first time we saw Stephen Strange very vulnerable, and I think this was the turn, this was the point where you start to see a more sort of human side to him,
Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. And then that also takes us to Kamath, or Taz, I hope I'm saying that right, Kamath, I think it is, I'm pretty sure. But then he goes off in this sort of, I don't know what the word would be, but it's a journey anyway. That just have to do that word. Takes him to these sort of little windy streets. He gets beaten up for his watch. I think he says something like, you can't take this, it's the only thing I have left. And again, symbolical of his his infatuation with materialism. He doesn't want to give it up. I think there's a note to the Rachel McAdams character inscribed in it.
Yeah.
he doesn't want to give it up, and then there's something symbolic about when I think it's Mordo, played by Chiwetel Ejiofor. I can never say that guy's name either.
Glad you said it, John.
Yeah, it's a very hard name to say, but he's a magnificent actor too. There's something poetic in when he lets him into Kamath. I think he says you have to give up and all of those things and be a new person. He hands him the watch, it's broken. So again, that's a physical sort of visual representation that this guy, that old life's done, you need to go off to this new life. That takes him face to face with the Ancient One. I think he thinks it's some Chinese guy.
Yeah, some
Immediately,
old guy,
he gets redirected to Tilda Swinton. And then we have that incredible sequence, which is just mind-bending, where he's very arrogant, he's taking tea, he gives her a dressing down, and then she sends him off into different dimensions. What did you make of that visually in terms of
the sceptical side of him thought the tea was like drugs or something like that, wasn't it? Yeah, he thought he was on a trip or something like that. I mean, it was great, John. It really brought him down to earth, didn't it? You know, with his ego and stuff like that. But one of the things that I liked about it was it reminded me so much of Neo's journey at this point in The Matrix. The introduction to obviously the Ancient One, very similar to the Morpheus character and his guidance to an extent, and it's very similar in the Ancient One as well. Although she doesn't believe that he is the right person. I think at this point she's very cynical. At this point, I think it's Mordo that's very much in favour of trying to get this guy on the correct road to not just recovery.
He senses the determination.
He's got the potential to be, a great wizard or something. I don't know what you call it.
Wizard.
I think I sound like Tony Stark here. But
embarrassing me in front of the wizard.
Yeah, so and I think that's the only difference. But the next maybe 30 minutes of the film reminded me so much of The Matrix and Neo's Thomas Anderson's introduction into The Matrix and understanding the training involved as well. So it keeps you interested. You can have a philosophical film all you like, but which is interesting, but some of the training involved in this, some of the choreography as well is fantastic at this stage, especially with Benedict Cumberbatch, Steve Strange and Mordo as well. I think just the training in there. There's something else we will talk about as well, John, is obviously the humour in this film, and there's a lot of humour throughout those first half hour that we've already talked about, but there's something about the humour in this that doesn't seem misplaced. It's not your traditional Marvel humour either, right in your face. There's a lot of little one-liners in there that if you don't listen carefully you might miss them first time round. And there's just something about obviously Doctor Strange, Mordo and Wong as well. There's this thing going on between the three of them, and I would include the Ancient One in this as well, for the dark humour. She's got a lot of dark humour in this film, Tilda Swinton, but just that setup was fantastic. It could have went either way. It could have started going down, a road of being very philosophical, but I thought they got the right sort of blend in there, with that kind of element to it, but obviously the action side of it as well.
Absolutely, Stephen. Look, I really enjoyed the interactions with the Ancient One and obviously Dr. Stephen Strange. In terms of visually, I thought it was mind-bending. He's going off to different realms. I think we see an initial shot of Dormammu at one point, and he's struck by it. I think he gets flung across the earth. It's just to bring them down, show them that there is more to the physical world, that there is different levels. And I thought that was required for the character at that point. He was still very much arrogant, and in this, I don't know, misguided view of the way the world works, and she slaps him down beautifully. And then you also do have the training, and the says the insatiable lust for learning that this guy possesses. I mentioned that previously too. There is a determination in this guy's character, and you see that. But again, it's almost like Luke Skywalker in The Empire Strikes Back too, where he doesn't believe he's capable of doing these things. He sees everyone around him doing it, and he thinks because his hands are broken that he's broken, and he's not really letting go. And then she shows him obviously the guy with the stump. He is able to do all of these different incantations and whatnot, and that opens his mind up briefly. But then of course we have the Everest sequence as well, where he's forced to really set his mind on it and actually do these portal things, I want to say. But I really enjoyed that whole half-hour stretch of training sequence with him and Mordo, the actual hand-to-hand combat. Him saying something, I think it's a magical object or something, will pick you when it's ready. In this case, it's obviously the levitation cape. That doesn't happen quite at that point.
No, but it's there, John. You do see it in the background, in the glass case. But I agree. I think this film could have went really deep, and that would have been fine, for your sort of, film goer that really enjoys that sort of genre. But I think they got it right. You've got to remind yourself it's a Marvel film. There's got to be a bit of fun in there. So I think the training came in at the right time as well. And you were getting to learn, along with Doctor Strange, the sort of philosophical side of it, and obviously the physical side of it as well. I thought the balance was just right.
Absolutely, Stephen. Look, I think the next point I've mentioned in the little guideline is all about the Caecilius. I know it's actually the implementation of MCU humour. I take it back right away. You mentioned it briefly. I think they do get the balance perfect in this movie. There's something about the humour, the way it's utilised, as you did say, the one-liners, just the interactions between Stephen Strange as well and Wong, where he's calling them Beyonce. I think I've actually got the quote here. Is it one word there, or one name like Adele, Aristotle, Drake, Eminem? Later on he calls him Beyonce when he's obviously getting in and stealing books. And again, the insatiable lust for learning. This guy's dabbling in advanced incantations and books and spells, for lack of a better word. So again, I thought that was really well handled by Scott Derrickson. He's got horror elements, he's got different elements going on in this movie. What was your thoughts on the humour as a whole in this movie, Stephen?
John, there was something about the humour in this film, and I did touch on it, but there was something different about it. It wasn't sort of on the nose like we had witnessed in the past. There was something about it that was it was more to do with sort of the bouncing off of each other, the characters in this film. There was something about the chemistry as well, with the sort of main four characters in the film as well. Obviously the Mads Mikkelsen character as well, there was a bit of humour in there as well, which I was glad about, because as we'll talk about, obviously, as we talk about the his introduction to Strange, there is humour sort of in and out of the sequences, which I felt was needed. I didn't want this film to take itself too serious. I thought it handled the sort of spiritual side of things very well, but it is an MCU film. It has to have elements of humour in it, but I'm glad they didn't go down the road of a traditional MCU sort of humour.
Absolutely, Stephen. And look, again, it's looking into Doctor Stephen Strange. Just Stephen Strange will do, John.
Or Doctor Strange.
Yeah, or Doctor Strange. But at that moment, he is a doctor. He is, yeah. So the Doctor, I'll just call him the Doctor.
Yeah.
There you go. He thinks he's a very funny guy anyway. He's had these sycophants surrounding him most of his professional life. I think he says that to Wong at one point. I'm usually quite funny. Why are you not laughing? Then later on, I think he laughs at one of his jokes and he just looks at him as if that wasn't even funny. What's wrong with you, man? But again, I think it's just playing into that side of the character. He's on a learning curve here, a journey, and he's got some ways to go. I thought he was very funny though, I have to say.
Yeah.
And I thought the implementation of the humour was pretty damn bang on, as I did say. But look, Stephen, the fight sequence between Caecilius and Strange, this is the first time these two guys come together. It really happens quite abruptly, because he's still in the midst of his training.
Yeah.
Then he just comes in and spoils the party. Everything's going swimmingly for him. I really enjoyed that whole fight sequence. Of course, he becomes acquainted with his cape during this. There's like weird metallic things holding Caecilius at one point. There's portals in and out of the Sahara Desert and whatnot.
Yeah.
So many cool things happening. Even the score, the little soundtrack, it's like, I say in my notes here, it's like a little harpsichord. There's a moment where there's a standoff with Caecilius and Strange. He's holding a goblet and he's like, aha! And he's like, you don't know how to work that or something like that. And there's a brief little moment that's a little harpsichord's playing in the background. I just thought, I didn't notice that before. That is fantastic. I really enjoyed that whole sequence. I thought it was incredibly cool.
Yeah. And
it shows you how far this guy's came, and very quickly.
Well, John, the first time I saw this, I thought it was going to be out his depth. I really didn't think it was ready to take on the sort of main villain of the film. But yeah, I mean, he handles himself well, obviously with the assistance of that cape, in the second half of the sort of fight sequence. But going back to the visuals, I know we've gone about this quite a bit, but I think it's very important to talk about these visuals at this stage. This wasn't just your sort of Inception, sort of buildings turning around stuff. This is actually a corridor that was getting twisted round, then it was getting sort of flipped on its side, so he would fall down it like it was an elevator shaft. It just, the way that was done was fantastic. I don't know if that was practical effects, if that was something that was built in, and they were probably on wires. I would imagine there was some element of that in there. I don't think it was all just
a combination of both.
Yeah, I don't think it was just all green screen.
No.
It certainly didn't look like that from what I recall.
Well, we've seen what happens when that
sort
of thing happens in
terrible.
Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, and
Attack of the Clones.
Yeah,
maybe.
Revenge of the Sith to an extent as well.
Yeah.
But there was just something that stuck in my mind about that. It was the first time I ever seen that happening. Apart from Inception, with I think it was when the car crash. How all the different layers were all happening at the same time. There was a slow motion scene. That was probably the closest, but this was like a full scale sort of action sequence in this corridor, and it was all Caecilius, I want to say.
Caecilius,
all his this was all his powers doing this, and it showed you how strong and powerful this guy was. That's how I doubted at this point Doctor Strange was ready to take him on, but for some reason, and I think it's probably down to wisdom as well. But obviously, the cape does plays a massive part in this.
Saves him big time.
It certainly does, especially when he's falling off that banister. There was just something great about this sequence, and it was a good way that both of them met as well with Mr. Doctor or whatever. I can't remember what he called himself.
Yeah, I've got the quote here, Stephen. I will whip that one out because it was a fantastic quote. I think he says, something like Mr. Strange. He says it's Doctor, Mr. Doctor. He's like, no, it's Strange. If you say so, or something along those lines. I can't actually find it. Who am I to judge? Yeah. So it was just great, the interactions. I just thought that Mads Mikkelsen was fantastic in this movie as a villain, the perfect sort of fit for an origin story like this. He's not all powerful. He's a sort of mentor, or not mentor, like a tutor gone bad. Yeah, almost like what the Ancient One seen in Strange himself. Yeah. But he goes on the good side of things, and obviously Caecilius goes on the bad side of things. So he had the potential to be a Doctor Strange, but he obviously was nefarious and wanted all the power, essentially. So I really enjoyed him in this movie. But I suppose we'll get into that shortly. Obviously stabbed. Incidentally, talking about humour, that cape, when it's dragging him and he's trying to run, that's hilarious. It's one of the best things in the whole movie, that, in terms of humour.
Well, it's trying to drag him over to that sort of neck, that body brace thing or whatever it was, but he's going for the obvious sword or whatever it was, I can't remember. The thing that most of us would run to, and that's in a sign of, we wouldn't go to this kind of medieval suit thing, and the cape's no, this is what you're taking, you'll find out why. It was really funny.
And yes, Stephen, I don't think that's something we've seen since this movie, the cape. It's almost maybe I'm wrong, consciousness within that cape. I've not seen it really do anything like that. Maybe he's got it under control now, I don't know.
It had its own personality at this point, but
had,
certainly since then, John. But I mean, we've saw Doctor Strange in only 2 films since then.
That's true.
And really, it wasn't really an end game apart from the sort of closing sort of 20 minutes or so. But you're right. I think the cape will play a big part once again. I think he'll have its own. Should have his own IMDb actually. Should play a big part, obviously, in Doctor Strange too.
It almost becomes symbiotic with it. It's almost like Venom.
Yeah.
It's very different when it's not fully combined with him, but once he takes it on, that's it. They blend together.
Yeah.
Stephen obviously gets stabbed. Stephen, that is, gets stabbed. It's all going Inception here. He has to return to the hospital. He meets Rachel McAdams' character, whose name is incidentally Christine Palmer. You told me that before. I had to quickly go into IMDb to check again. Wow. And then there's a fight scene in this when she's trying to save his life on the actual operating table. I forgot about this since I'd watched it initially. The astral fight sequence between him and one of Caecilius's goons, I'm going to call him.
Yeah.
That's a very cool moment, that scene where they're fighting over each other. She can't see them. And also there's things getting knocked around. What did you make about that whole scene? Him getting back and meeting her there? They make up, kind of, because obviously they fall out. And just that fight sequence as a whole.
John, the fight sequence speaks for itself. It's one of the things that's just really good about this film is the choreography.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, obviously Strange getting back to meet her again, it should have been tense and uncomfortable, but it was actually quite funny because he's walking in there all dolled up, like a wizard, getting into the sort of real world again, if you like, and it's just some of the looks that she gives him, some of the one-liners as well. Rachel McAdams is a very funny actor, when she wants to be, and there's something about their chemistry as well during these sequences. She obviously she cares very much for Stephen Strange, and it's probably the first time that he's shown a bit of emotion towards her as well. Certainly, they must have had moments before, off screen, if you like, these characters before obviously the camera started to roll and we saw them. But there was something very vulnerable. Obviously, he's vulnerable. He's been stabbed. And he needs our help. So, it was very important to get those characters together again. It would have been very, like Thor and I can't remember Natalie Portman's character, Jane. Yeah, Jane. You know how it just kind of fizzled out after the Dark World. It's just, there was no mention of her or anything like that. I was kind of worried that would be the case in this film, but it was good to see them reuniting again, and basically working as a team, in different levels, if you like. But yeah, visually, John, the sort of astral fight, as you've mentioned in the notes here, was great to watch as well, and it blended in well with the real world events as well. Absolutely,
Stephen. Obviously, that went back to the first shots with him in the Ancient One, where she knocks him out of his body. That sense of discombobulation, he's out in another realm, for lack of a better phrase. But also that takes us on to, I want to say, it's not the out and out finale, because obviously the Ancient One dies and then there's another finale after it, but it's leading to that crescendo at the end of the movie. I think they face up again against Caecilius.
Yeah, she
gets killed. I think there's a squabbling back and forth. I think Doctor Strange reveals to Mordo that she's been dabbling in some dark incantations and whatnot.
Yeah,
to make herself live longer. So they're kind of a squabble and they go off. I think she sacrifices her. I don't know, I can't recall exactly what happens. I think she gets flung out a building or something and drops to the bottom. He goes back to the hospital again. And then you speak about visuals and cinematography and whatnot. Again, maybe not so much cinematography, but visuals. That slow motion sequence where she realises she's dead.
Yeah.
She's going to impart some last bits of wisdom into Strange's brain, noggin, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And you see the helicopter coming down. It's all very slow motion. She says a great line as well. Right. Death is what gives you life meaning. To know that one's days are numbered. I thought that was a great little line, and no one could really utter that better than Tilda Swinton.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a reveal in Endgame. Endgame it is. Yeah, even that bit more special, doesn't it? Because it's such a great character, and the sacrifice as well. I think it was needed. I don't know if that's true to the comic books. Maybe somebody can correct us or not. But I felt there had to be some kind of emotional loss. And I think that was the sort of bigger impact, was obviously her. I think if it was anyone else, it wouldn't have had the same kind of impact, No. It had to be someone of her standing. And obviously to drive Strange to the next level as well, and his training and obviously his development. I think... and she does, you're right, she does part that last bit of wisdom and knowledge onto him as well, and this kind of makes his character more rounded as well, so it was needed. That was very similar to, the Han Solo character should have maybe have sacrificed his life in Empire Strikes Back for the greater good, because that's certainly what this character does in this, and it has a bit more impact than, any other character around in this film.
And she also reveals to him, Stephen, that he has a choice. He could go back to his old life, use the powers to repair his hands, no tremors, and then just forget everything that's happened prior, or he could forgo his old life, become a better, more rounded individual, have the tremor, but then he's get the full capabilities of his power. And then the next sequence after that, obviously we see the tremor in his hand. That reveals that he has indeed chosen to remain as this all-seeing, all-hearing, omnipotent Doctor Strange. But Stephen, briefly getting back to that sequence, because there's a cool moment in it. Stan Lee's cameo is in this sequence. The chase sequence again, Mordo and Strange, they're being apprehended by obviously Caecilius and his goons. Again, Inception-esque things going on. Crazy. You've got cars dropping off vertically down roads.
Yeah, it looks like a waterfall.
Yeah, you've got Chrysler buildings coming down and folding in on themselves. I don't know how they did that, but the visual effects people in this movie deserved recognition at the Oscars. I know they wouldn't have got it. I don't know who won for 2017 when this would have been up, potentially, but it wouldn't have been this. I know that for a fact, but they deserved recognition because this movie is up there with what they did visually. Just incredible shots. But yeah, also, what did you make of the symbolism of that kind of a... Well, I wouldn't say symbolism, but the focus on his hands throughout, and then obviously that final sort of shot of him becoming at one with the tremor in his hands, giving up his old life of materialism and self-absorbed style of living, and then fully embracing this new life, this more wisdom-heavy life.
Listen, John, it was very on the nose, wasn't it? I mean, they kept reminding us of this sort of...
the shoes in JoJo.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on your attention span, really, you know. I didn't need it. I didn't really have to be reminded of his old life and what his new life is, and the decisions he had to make or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, it was symbolic, you know, and there was a few times, I don't know, I can't remember how many times, maybe 2 or 3 times it was reminded. And it was really just to sort of remind the audience of his old life, you know, and what he's given up, I suppose.
I think about 5 or 6 times, Stephen, to look at his
was
hands.
It as many as that?
Yeah, maybe 4, 5, 6 times. I think he's just trying to hit home again, Scott Derrickson. This guy's obsessed with his hands. These hands are so important and crucial to this journey. They were so tantamount to his success in his previous way of doing things. He's brain surgeon, neurosurgeon, whatever he is. And once he lost the ability to use them and wield them in that life, then he had to go off on this journey. So I think that's probably why he's just hitting it over the head again and again and again. The hands, the tremor, yada yada yada. But look, I think we'll go into performances before we break down the finale and just overall thoughts in the movie. I mean, there's a couple of standout performances in here. You mentioned Rachel McAdams and her little... I mean, it's not a huge performance. She's maybe get about 5 minutes of screen time, if that.
Yeah.
But she imbues so much comedy and emotion and heart into that performance. So that was a really cool performance. Tilda Swinton's up there as the ancient one. She's just fantastic.
Yeah.
She plays these wacky characters so well. You've got the guy that plays Wong, whose name completely eludes me, but he injected some really good... Benedict Wong,
I was going to say, that was his name.
He injects so much humour and heart into this, his interactions with Doctor Strange. And then obviously Chiwetel Ejiofor, he plays a kind of... He's an interesting character, and there's something that happens at the end.
Yeah, you know, he is the serious one in this film, and we'll obviously get into the end credit scenes as well, John, which sort of knocks you in a loop as well, what happens to his character. But I suppose it was... You know, in hindsight, it was building towards something like that anyway. But yeah, Rachel McAdams her character was there to sort of remind Strange of his previous life, his old life, if you like. You know, obviously have some ties back to that as well. She was great. Yeah, when you think about it, and sometimes I don't think about it. You know, sometimes actors can have that sort of impact on you that you think they're in a film a lot longer than they are.
Yeah.
You know, and certainly her character, you're right, maybe about 5 or 6 minutes is probably the max of her screen time, and it's enough. It really is enough, because we don't really have to know the ins and outs of this character, her past or anything like that. She's there to serve a purpose, sort of tie Stephen down to his sort of old life and his old ways, and remind him that he did have a life before his new life. You know, Benedict Cumberbatch, I knew what I was getting. You know, there was elements of his humour in Sherlock with Martin Freeman.
Yeah.
You know, they bounced off each other so well. Again, there's something about this guy, he just works well with others, and it seems to rub off on others as well, his sort of humour, you know. And it certainly, you know, in the case of Benedict Wong, it certainly rubs off on him more so. There's something great about those two going back and forth. Tilda Swinton, you know what you're going to get with her anyway, and she just seems to play these wacky... I don't know if wacky's the right word,
it's kind of off kilter.
Yeah,
strange.
Strange, pardon the pun, but she certainly does play this role so well. She really does play this role so well. I could watch a lot more of this character, and that perhaps she'll come back again in some kind of maybe flashback sequences.
Multiverse?
I hope so, John, because I think the character's wasted. You know, I understood the sacrifice in this film too, obviously, for the sort of bigger picture and stuff like that, but what a character and what an actor.
Yeah, Stephen, look, Benedict Cumberbatch, I mean, the guy's just got the stature, he's got that gravitas about him to do a character like this. I mean, having looked into this character retrospectively and seeing how big he was in the early days of the MCU, Marvel Comics, he was a really powerful guy, and he's been watered down pretty consistently over the years to what he is perhaps now. Powerful, but not that powerful. He was ridiculously powerful. So for them to pick a guy like this, I think it probably shows you the confidence they had in his ability to lead a franchise, a mini franchise within the greater MCU.
Yeah.
Thought it was a great choice, as I said previously. He's just we knew about this guy. He's a fantastic actor. Everything he's in is brilliant, really. I'm looking forward still. I think he was in the current war. to watch that now.
Yeah.
That I can maybe get my hands on that finally after all that shenanigans with Harvey Weinstein and whatnot. We'll not go down that rabbit hole though. Also, Mads Mikkelsen, fantastic. I mean, just a great villain.
I actually forgot to mention him. You're right, John. There's something about this guy. The first film I saw him in was The Hunt, which was a foreign film.
Yeah.
And I don't really want to get into what the film's about, but there's something about this guy. Hannibal as well, the television series he appeared in. I think that was what he was more prominent at this point. I don't think I had Sky Television. I think it was on that at the time. But the first film I did see him in, the first performance I saw him in, was a film called The Hunt. Fantastic. Obviously his Rogue One stuff as well. He's a sort of I would say he's the heart of the film, he's or the soul, amazing performance once again. That hologram scene with Jyn Erso was fantastic.
One of the best acted scenes in a Star Wars movie.
Yeah, between both of them, you've got to obviously give the actress, I can't remember, Felicity Jones, obviously the credit for that as well. She played it so emotionally, but it was working off of him, bouncing off of him. He's just a great actor, and in this again, he's not your two-dimensional sort of villain like you got. You know how the sort of underlings of Thanos, I can't remember their names, John, they were very much just 2D.
The Black Order?
Yeah, very 2D. They had a couple of little liners in there, but there's something about this Caecilius character that it reminded me so much of Doctor Strange, but he went on a different path, like you said, but those little sort of elements of dark humour in there as well kept, obviously the character interesting.
Absolutely, Stephen, I've said it time and again, Derrickson knows how to make a good movie in this sort of sub-genre. It's like action meets horror meets dark comedy and just everything in between. That's why I can't wait to see what he's going to do, perhaps with Chris Evans in this Bermuda Triangle movie, and it's why I was so disappointed he didn't come back on board to direct the Multiverse of Madness. It's a shame, but look, it is what it is. Stephen, the finale of the movie, I mean, the endless Dormammu loop, says, but just prior to that, the way he rewinds time, everything's happening. I think Wong dies. There's people, there's whole hell's breaking loose, and he just winds it back and replays it. He thinks it's perhaps inevitable that the world was going to end up like this, and he decides, I'm going to go off.
He's breaking the rules,
Yes, and make a bargain. I've come to bargain with Dormammu. What did you make about that loop? Because the first time I seen this, you actually seen it prior to me. You told me about this loop. You warned me that it would be pretty hilarious, and I thought it was. And again, the indefatigability of Doctor Strange, the determination that's palpable right from the start, trying to mend his hands, proves so pivotal in this end sequence. This guy maybe going back and forth with this big cosmic entity for a millennia, perhaps many millennia, just repeatedly dying
this is the
again.
thing, John, you don't know how long it goes on for, and it's the selflessness of the character as well, and this is what harks back to those opening sequences with him and where he is now. This is one of the things I love about this film, the transformation and the development of Stephen Strange in this film is believable, if you can call it believable in a sort of cosmic sort of genre, but there's just something natural and organic about his transformation and honourable as well. The selfishness of the character in the beginning to the selflessness at the end. And this whole sequence to me is the one that always stands out the most. Out of all the visuals and stuff like that, which are absolutely amazing, and the fighting, the choreography, cinematography, score and all that, and just the acting and the humour playing off each other. Something about this sequence that just cracked me up. You're talking about visuals. The visuals are very close and very similar to the likes of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, that talking planet thing. Also Ant-Man as well, when they're getting into the quantum realm. It's in that sort of level of madness you're getting into at this point, so just something about the confrontation, the dialogue between them is very important as well. There's a lot of dialogue. I know you've probably got it marked down, John,
I've got a quote,
so I'll let you obviously do that. I don't want to steal your thunder or anything.
Not at all.
There's just something about the determination of Doctor Strange not giving up on Earth, basically, and not giving up on humanity. But there's something so funny about his determination that I don't know if it's his arrogance that's doing it or whatever, but he really winds up. Was it Dormammu?
Yeah,
he just winds him up, and I just found it very funny.
But Stephen, again, it's the intelligence, the blend of this guy. He's a very unique fella, for lack of a better word. He's arrogant. He's sure of himself, he's intelligent, he's determined, and he's wise obviously at this point too. He's went on an emotional journey to lock this timeless being into an eternal loop and browbeat it into letting him go and bargaining with him. It's incredible. I think only he could do it. I don't even think Tilda Swinton's Ancient One would have been able to pull it off. And you're right, the dialogue, it says to him, you cannot do this forever, and he replies, actually I can. This is it now, you and me trapped in the moment. And then it says, then you will spend an eternity dying. He says, yeah, but Earth will be safe, but you will suffer. Pain is an old friend again. It's just beautiful. It's something about some of the dialogue in the MCU movies that'll just, they pop for me, and it's why I almost fight back against naysayers like Scorsese and whatnot when they say it's not film, because there's little moments, even though it could be conceived or portrayed as perhaps a theme park movie, there's little moments in there that elevate it for me, and if you're paying attention then you will pick up on it. If you don't even watch the movies, then you will never pick up on it, sadly. But I really enjoyed that end sequence. It just epitomised the journey the guy went on. As you did say, he's a much wiser, more rounded fellow now. He's not self-absorbed, he's saving the whole of humanity and doing it in a selfless act, if you'd like. He goes from selfishness to selflessness, as I said. Stephen, I was going to touch upon the symbolism of the final shot in the movie, but I think we've done it to the death. With the hand, the trembling hand.
Yeah.
But the combination of the trembling hand and the broken watch, it's like he's came to terms with this and he's blending these two lives together. But I've did that time and again. I'm done with it, man. What the hell did you make about maybe the technical aspects before we move on to the overall thoughts? I think we've perhaps did that to the death. I says the CG was pretty remarkable, probably deserved an Oscar. Cinematography was superb, the way it kept up with some of the action sequences, and I really enjoyed the score.
Yeah, I'll not go. I don't want to really repeat myself, John, but it's probably, you know, all elements of the CG, cinematography and the score, maybe not so much the score, there's other ones that have stood out a wee bit better than this one, but cinematography, it's probably, I would say it's probably the best, maybe the best, and the CG, it blended in with the practical effects, just like I was saying, the corridor scene is some of the best stuff I've seen in any film, really. I just think there's something about that that's so real, if that makes any sense. It doesn't take you out of the picture thinking, oh, that green screen looks terrible, because there is some films I have seen, Avengers Assemble, if you go back and watch some of the New York battle sequences, certainly when they're fighting the aliens, you know, the green screen's terrible. I don't know if you've went back and seen it, John.
I'll let you go back.
I have on Disney Plus, and some of it is dated really badly. In this, I think that's the reason I do suspect most of that sort of sequence was practical. It will age a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. Look, I thought the CG was fantastic. I mean, this is a movie, it's not hugely old, it's only 4 years old, but I think it's right up there with the likes of Endgame even now. I mean, 4 years is almost an eternity in the world of CG and just visuals as a whole in Hollywood and whatnot. But look, overall thoughts on the film, its place in the MCU. For me, this movie is fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed it. From the first day I watched it all the way through to now, it was a pleasure going back and watching it again on Disney Plus. Just the performances, the humour, the blend of genres. I thoroughly enjoy it. I think it's completely unique in the MCU. It's one of the best standalone movies for me. Just, I don't know what it is about the character. He's just the journey goes on. I love redemptive stories. That's why I love The Godfather so much. The journey, not redemption in that case, but Michael Corleone going from an innocent little guy to an out-and-out monster at the end of the movie. I love things like that. And this is almost like not as good as The Godfather, of course, but a reverse of that. He goes from a snarky shit of a man to selflessness, and I thought that was beautiful, and I really enjoyed this movie.
In its place, John, in the MCU, I would say, you know, out with probably Avengers films, excluding Age of Ultron, and possibly the Captain America trilogy, this is probably my favourite one out of them all. You know, even Iron Man and whatever came after that.
It's funny, the Iron Man movies aren't that great.
Well, the first one was amazing, but you know, it's just something about this. I think it was because it was taking the sort of MCU to another level as well. We already got, obviously, the Guardians of the Galaxy and the sort of cosmic side of things, but just to have the sort of mysteriousness and obviously the mystical side of things as well, it was just adding another element to this magnificent universe that, you know, Marvel have created, you know, with the likes of Stan Lee, etc. But I mean, it was a film that sort of caught me off guard. I knew it was going to be good for the cast and obviously the character, but when I saw it, I was blown away.
Yeah, absolutely, Steve. Final thing I would add is that I cannot wait to see Multiverse of Madness, and that's all because of this movie. Without this, there wouldn't be a Multiverse of Madness. There wouldn't have been that one shot at the end of Endgame. You wouldn't have that amazing character. So thank God Kevin Feige and Marvel and Disney and Scott Derrickson made this happen.
And it made Far From Home believable as well.
Yes, it did. You're absolutely right, because there's different verses and whatnot. All in that case, obviously not. But look, guys, have you seen Doctor Strange 4 years later? If you haven't, then you should go and watch it. It's pretty damn good. If you haven't seen it, if you have seen it, you can comment below and give us your thoughts on it, from good to bad to anything. And you can also like the video if you've enjoyed it, and you can subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this. And if you do, then you'll see us again tomorrow for a review of Captain America and the Winter Soldier.